Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz bassist and composer Peter Mack and pianist and composer Chuck Lamb. They came together for a new 2021 CD called Exit 33, out on November 5, 2021. Peter has been a mainstay on the central New York jazz scene for the past 4 decades. He's one of the region's most beloved bassists and a veteran jazz man. On the other hand, Chuck has been with the Brubeck Brothers Quartet for 14 years and has performed with this band or his own groups at numerous renowned venues around the globe. Together, they click well, and their music is a testament to that. Enjoy their tales. Well, hey, gentlemen, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz today, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, thanks for doing it.
You bet. I guess the one thing right now is, we kind of probe new music, and what's going on is the elephant in the room is COVID. It looks like we're kind of coming out of this wave, so to speak, and things are opening up. How does this feel to have a new album out and the possibility of actually performing and delivering this to a live audience?
Yeah, man. For me, out touring and everything and navigating and getting gigs canceled and then finally starting to play, each gig right now in front of an audience is just the energy level is extremely high of people being so grateful. So you got that on top of being able to play great music, and then Peter and I can get out and do that same vibe without, there's still the concern, but just like you said, it seems like we're on the other side. So Peter and I are really looking forward to getting out and promoting this record, and so, man, I'm psyched.
I think it's probably one of the best things I've done. It was definitely the hardest. I couldn't have picked a better guy to do it with, I'll tell you that.
Right. Likewise, man.
Speaking of, how does this work for you two? Talk to me a little bit about the history and how you hooked up and how you've kind of culminated into your incarnation on this album today.
I was playing with the drummer Harvey Sorgan for quite a while, years, with different musicians, and he knew I was playing with a local pianist who was basically a pain in the ass. And he said, "Peter, you should be playing with Chuck Lamb." And I go, who the hell's that? He told me who he was, and I went online. I listened to him. I said, "Holy shit, this guy's got pretty decent chops, man." And it was almost intimidating to me. But, Harvey said, "No, you'd be a good fit with him." And we hooked up and we did a gig, and it was just like, I just felt like I was at home. We barely have to really rehearse anything because we just play it and it just happens. So that's pretty rare when you start meeting musicians like that. And I was able to play more being me instead of being somebody else in the band and following them. So Chuck gave me a tremendous amount of space to do what I was doing, and he actually followed me, which was just refreshing for a change instead of having somebody step all over an idea that you're trying to create.
It's interesting, man, because we did some band gigs, with Chico Freeman, some other cats as a group, which, it always gelled. But when I remember getting together with Peter at his house when we were talking about this project, and we just did the first tune, and the chemistry factor is like, man, I wish we had the record button on from the first note that we played when we started to hang, because there was something there that was really sympathetic.
I remember turning to you and saying, "What do we need the other guys for?" It sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
I love the other guys, but it was just like, geez, we could fill an auditorium with the sound that we're doing. It just was beautiful. Yeah. And of course, Chuck's writing is it's beautiful. It's modern, it's tasteful.
And I guess just as somebody that's not a musician, and a lot of people that are going to buy and download this album aren't, I don't know that we understand the dynamics of that. For instance, I think it's one thing to say that the Beatles were the best band of all time, or one of the best, but they had chemistry. When they came together, magic happened. And you can get 2 people together, you can get 3 people together, 4 people, but there's times where it won't work. So my question to you is, why exactly does this work? Because you have a conversation, you're creating musical moments. Why does it work so well for you two?
First, I'm really glad you brought up the Beatles, because that's my favorite group of all time, including all the jazz world stuff. It's all about that chemistry, like with the Brubeck Quartet. It's incredible music and all of that, but it's all about the chemistry when we get in the van or the plane or wherever to our next gig. we're best friends, and that translates, and I think Peter and I, just on a hangout level, aside from the music, we just have a great time together. We shooting the shit or whatever it is, and that translates so easily to the music. For me, man, it's as important.
Yeah, you're not bringing anything extra to the music like baggage and drama and things like that. It's just easy to be with someone like Chuck. So all that other stuff goes away, and then you just have this beautiful canvas to create on. That's what I really like about playing with Chuck.
Yeah, man. Like I said, that one of the critical components is if we're hanging out and we're, having a great time together, hanging out, talking about stuff, then the transition to music is, equally powerful. So I'm totally digging.
And it's easy. I mean, it's just easy to do because you just,
right.
It's a place that you can hang and be yourself, and your ideas, they coagulate with the other person's, and we can both express the same thing at the same time.
Which we did a lot.
Yeah. So is there good food off Exit 33?
Hey, man, that's a great question. It's hard to find. Where are you, man? Where are you located?
I'm in Kansas City, Missouri.
Kansas City was my home for many years.
Oh, cool.
I lived in Parkville, and I had a fusion band back then called Dry Jack.
Yeah.
And we released a couple of records, but we were based in, we got the record deal from Kansas City. And
Wow.
a guitar player, a Kansas City guitar player named Rod Fleeman, we hooked up with him and, made a cassette tape, at some sub club in Kansas City called the Levy. That's how we got our record deal. So Kansas City's that's one of my homes for sure, man. That's great. You're there.
Wow, that's wild because the other day I went to a recital at Johnson County Community College and Rod had a trio and I was watching.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he was up there playing.
You're kidding.
No, it's so weird you say that. That's a part of like the world waking up. Like I'm trying to get to as many shows as possible, and Rod was he was having a good time tearing it up there. So
I can't believe that you saw Rod. We're best friends. You talk about that chemistry. I have that with Rod, personally and musically. So I just spoke with him 3 or 4 days ago for my wedding. So I love that you just saw him, man.
yeah,
He's a beautiful cat, man, and a beautiful player, So that's great.
Small
That's
world.
great.
So exactly where are you two located?
I'm in a little town called Auburn, New York, near Syracuse.
Okay.
I'm in Saratoga Springs with my wife, and I grew up in central New York, pretty close to Peter in Verona, Exit 33, which happens to be the name of the record.
One thing I want to know too is, we all have influences. We've mentioned the Beatles. There's been other things that we've kind of brought up, but stylistically, and even with your voice, you guys have been around for a long, long time, and you have to find your voice in this music. Who are influences, like, for each respectively, and how do those influences come together for your vision collectively for the music you put out?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know if I'm ready to answer it. My influences, Chuck Lamb. I mean, when I play with him, I'm being heavily influenced by his playing. Hopefully it reciprocates. I was having this conversation before that, I've listened to a lot of cats over all the years, and I never tried to emulate one of those people, more to pick up maybe some of their physical components of how they utilize the instrument. But I'm always searching for my own sound, which I think is important because all the other musicians have their own sound. They have their own breath, their own voice, and I'm constantly searching for my own. So I've been influenced by everybody I've heard. I'm also a designer. Designers realize that they're not designing anything new. They're just taking ideas from everything they've learned, and that's the way the brain learns to come up with something you think is new, but it's always influenced by something that you've seen. So I guess I would say it's the same thing with music. I mean, I love to listen to the classics like Ron Carter, Christian McBride, Sam Jones. I mean, these are the classic guys. These are the guys that had big sounds and they developed their own. I love Charles Mingus. He basically was a blues writer. The guy was amazing. And I love the fact that he always wanted to be a pimp.
Jesus, dude. Always wanted to be. I love that. Man, for me, I started out on drums and with my older brothers, and we were in bands right from 10 years old on, and then I switched to percussion, and then I switched to piano. And the influence of playing a percussive instrument, piano is too, but drums and all of that just naturally translated. And then, man, for me, I started listening to Chick, just the natural progression of that thing with Chick and Herbie and McCoy. And then as I kind of kept developing my own sound, I fell in love with classical music, and Debussy and Ravel suddenly became a really huge influence, especially in my composing, the elements of that music and applying that, organically. And then, like Peter said, just playing with different people, the sound developed into my own sound. I'm very, very grateful to be able to have a voice, the spontaneous voice of improvisation. Yeah, and finding cats like Peter, we share that. Just somehow we're on the same page. You don't find cats all the time that you're just on the same page. You don't even have to look at the book. It's right there. So, all of this stuff, is an influence. And just like Peter said, playing with Peter is a real influence because he's a different kind of player. He does have his own voice, and he does approach it in a really unique way. He's got a big, fat sound. And, all that stuff, man, is incredible. It's all part of the big picture,
Yeah, go ahead. Being on the same page, it made it possible for us to do this. It's a live recording. There's no touch-ups. There's no note changing. There's no time changes. Those were exactly what we played, exactly how we did it, and there was no studio influence in it. That's tough to do with other people that I've done it with, where you have to go in and repair things.
Yeah, that's an important thing to, because these days, man, you go in the studio and cats are like, this 4-bar phrase, could I take the 4-bar phrase from the first take and put it in, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, or this intro or this ending, or can you bend this note and make it flat, or...
Right. So we didn't have that thing that, I guess it's a luxury, but...
We didn't need it.
Yeah, and then we didn't need it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear. It's nice to hear the warts, when they appear, because they turn into something... just a live gig, if there is like a little bit of a flub that turns into something musical on the spot. So it's nice to have that organicness to it.
And nobody remembers a flub in a live recording. Man, when I watch myself in live recordings, I cringe. Little mistakes. But, here, knowing that you're recording and knowing that you got to when you do something like that, even in my music on the stage now, is how simple can you make this? How simple can you play? How can you just look for that right note instead of playing all those notes so everybody can pick from it? You don't necessarily have to do that. And the simpler it gets, the better it gets, and you start developing space. And it just makes it more beautiful.
Let's say you two come to Kansas City to put on a show, and you have to write up something that would either be in one of our local publications or on the web that would say, look, this is who we are, this is what we do, and with all of the jazz events that are going on, ours should be one that you should come to. How are you going to word that and put that out there to get people to see you here in Kansas City?
Sort of like what you just said. I don't know, what do you think, Peter? What's your feel about?
Another good question. I'm not prepared to answer. I just say that you're going to hear a great live performance of two people that will play as one, and you'll be surprised that it's only two people. Man, I had a lot of people come and listen to it after, and they go, "This is only two people? Holy man, that's a big sound for two people."
Right.
I would love to fill a concert hall with just two people and do that, because it's just the dynamics are really important, and playing with just one person, it's a lot easier to have those dynamics. So, I don't know, I guess come to hear a dynamic performance with, two seasoned veterans.
That's good, man. That's tough. That's a tough question, because it gets into how do you present something, like how much do you touch off on history of the guys, but the project itself is all about, we're going to be doing some original stuff. We're going to be doing our take on some standards, but you're going to hear some really fresh approach to a form that's been, well-trodden form. You're going to hear some different musical stuff that you haven't heard before. The joy of that.
Yeah, I don't think it would be, when you come to hear it, it's not going to be a redundant performance of something you've heard. You listen to the album, right?
Oh, yeah. And that leads into my next question here. It's out November 5th, Exit 33. With all of the choices that people have out there of music to buy or download, when they do when they download or buy this, what do you hope they get from this experience? What's your hope that the listener walks away with?
I would love people to go, this makes me feel really good, and to, put a smile on their face, just to be able to feel the joy of music. That's my hope for, any project that I do, but in particular, this one, since it's whittled down to just the two of us, walk away from it and feel better about life, man. That's as simple as that for me.
I guess I would say the same thing. I would hope that they would walk away with a feeling of joy. I mean, that's what all humans, desire, is that feeling, and sometimes it's far and, fewer times, and we've been through a lot of times, but I think when you can listen to an album like this, or even, wanting to hear us live, and deciding that you're going to make sure we get a concert in your city, I just think it pays off, to get that joyful feeling. I'm always looking for it.
Yeah, right on.
It definitely was joyful when we did it, but I gotta tell you, when you're done with it, you're exhausted. It's just, there's so much emotion in it, to do this.
That's a good exhaustion for sure. Gentlemen, thank you for opening up about the new album. Good luck with it. Good luck with the return to the live stage. It's been a pleasure.
All right, Bill. Thank you very much, man.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to both Peter and Chuck for their time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Dabino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.